How many times in the last month have you decided not to go running, or not to get on the bike, or not to do the exercise that you were actually going to do? I know I've done it quite a few times, ironically, including this evening. But I'm much better at it now than I used to be, and that is because I made a decision many years ago, no, not even many years ago, let's say 2 years ago, to prioritise my physical hobbies, let's say, over work. And that is how I make the time to do all the running, cycling, and whatever else I'm up to. And in this video, I'm going to share with you exactly how to do that and why it might be good for you. Now, I rarely ask people to subscribe to this channel because you've all heard it to death, but please subscribe to this channel because otherwise I'm languishing with like 3 subscribers and frankly, it's getting embarrassing. So I think one of the first major issues is when we want to do something sport related, i.e. running and cycling, which is what I'm really going to talk about in this video because those are the things that I do the most. We just don't have time, okay? We've all got too much shit to do. We've all got to work, we've all got to catch up with the Instagram or Threads now. We've all got to cook dinner every day. We've got to decide what we're going to have for dinner. We've got to buy said food, we've got to earn the money to buy said food, we've got to look after the kids, the dog, the cat's just vomited on the floor. There's a lot going on. We didn't always have time to just go for a run. In fact, sometimes it kind of feels like people who are just like, oh, I'm just back from this holiday, oh, I'm just going here. We're like, where do you get the time? And I think part of the reason is that we live our lives on social media, and so we see people who do any of these kinds of sports and we only see those images on social media. So if you look at my Instagram or in fact my YouTube channel, you probably think that I do sport every single day, and I'm here to tell you I don't. I run 2 to 3 times a week. In a good week, I'll run 3 to 4, but that is not that common. I'll cycle maybe once a week, and I'll be doing different types of cycling, which I'm going to talk about. I do yoga maybe once a fortnight. In my head, I do it a lot more often than that. Sometimes I do strength training, but who am I kidding? Not enough. And yes, in between all those things, I'm walking everywhere or cycling everywhere or whatever. I'm quite an active person, but I'm definitely not doing these things every single day and in a large amount. And yet, I do have time over the last 6 months to have watched 11 full seasons of Death in Paradise. And I think a lot of the time we prioritise things like scrolling on our phones or watching the flicks. We prioritise those things over exercise for one very obvious reason, and that is that it's easier to do that, to watch that thing or to look at your phone than it is to get changed, get out the door and go for a run or a bike ride. We think that we're watching TV or scrolling on our phones to have a mental break. That is why so many of us are doing those things. Like, oh, I just need to relax. I just want to watch something mindless or watch something entertaining or scroll on my phone for 5 minutes. Like, just give me that. I've been at work all day. I've dealt with the children. I just need to shut down. But that's not what you're doing. When you're watching shit on TV, and when you're scrolling through your phone, you're not taking a mental break at all. Oh my God, and don't even get me started if you're doing both of those things at the same time, because I know the truth. A lot of people out there are watching something on TV while scrolling through their phones at the same time. Don't do that. What you're not doing when you're doing those things, one or both, at the same time, is you're not giving your brain a break at all. So when you're scrolling through your phone, your brain has been bombarded by all the stuff you know it's being bombarded by. And when you're watching TV, you're maybe thinking about other things, or you're watching this dross, let's face it, so much of the time. Actually, I just watched Erin Brockovich the other day and it's such a good film. I cannot believe I haven't watched it thus far. Highly recommend. But you're not giving yourself a break. You're giving yourself a physical break because you're lying down on the sofa. But I mean, how much movement have you done today? Like, do you need a physical break or do you not? So while it's really easy to prioritise watching stuff or scrolling through your phone to give yourself a mental break, it's not a mental break, it's a lie. And one of the things that I remember every single time I go for a run, but I don't really want to go for a run, is that is a true mental break. So when I finish my day's work, if I go immediately to the TV or something, there isn't gonna be any division because I've spent my day looking at a screen. Not everyone works in front of a computer. I do, and a lot of people do. I'm looking at a screen and then I move to the sofa and look at another screen. There is no mental division at all. I can't switch off from work. There's no end to my day. But when I leave my desk and I go outside, then the day's work has gone, and suddenly I'm back in the real world again. You know, the world that isn't Zoom meetings and calendar invites and email and Word documents. Retro, I actually use Google Documents. I'm back in the real world of birdsong and the sound of water flowing and the sound of the wind rustling in the trees. I mean, they're just great trees. Like, they're great trees. They're solid. They're very tree-like. I think I'm in a marsh. And I'm back in my own physical body. And that is a mental break. It is amazing the things that come to me when I'm outside running or cycling after work. Because my brain has, you know, powered down almost. And it creates this incredible space for these ideas and inspiration and all this kind of stuff to filter in that cannot come into your brain when you are staring at a screen, consuming some kind of content or consuming your work. So when you consider that maybe you don't have time to do exercise, do you have time to scroll through your phone or watch TV? And I know those two things are not always the same. It annoys me too. It's like people say, oh, just don't buy coffees out and then you'll be able to buy a house. I mean, really? Are we still doing that? And it's not the same to be like, don't watch an hour of TV, go for an hour's run instead. Of course, that's not always the case. And of course, you may not even be able to physically leave your house because maybe the kids are asleep or something like that. But try to be more conscious about where your time actually goes. Maybe even write it down, like, where does your time actually go? Because I think a lot of the time we massively underestimate how much free time we actually have. And further to this, sometimes we feel like it's selfish to go out for a run or a bike ride or to an exercise class or whatever we want to do when our family or partner or whoever is at home. Like we're leaving them to do something for ourselves because we're so selfish. The way I started thinking about this is more like you are not yourself if you're not looking after yourself. And the reason why I love running and cycling anyway is because yes, they are exercise, but I mean, I'm not a huge fan of labouring this point of we must do exercise. No, I think we must move our bodies in a strenuous manner in an enjoyable way. Because otherwise, like, why turn something into a chore? Do you know what I mean? Find the movement that you enjoy. And yes, I'm talking about running and cycling, and maybe you're interested in those things too because you're watching this video, but there are plenty of movement things that you might enjoy. I don't know, dancing, badminton, cricket, like tennis, whatever. It's Wimbledon currently. But when you move your body, you are taking care of yourself and you are a healthier person and you're a happier person and you are probably a less mentally stressed person. So all of those things are so critical that they are as critical as drinking water and getting enough sleep. Also, if you have kids, friends, family, whatever, when they see you do these things that are difficult and require motivation and discipline and determination, you inspire them to do those things too. You inspire kids to be like, oh, okay, adults past a certain age still do sport. They still learn new sports. They still enter races or, you know, just do the park run, whatever. Like, you're inspiring those people and making a space in the world for them to also move into. Prioritizing stuff like running and cycling also doesn't have to be carving out specific time for it. So a lot of the time, if I don't feel like I have the time or space in my day to go for a run or go for a bike ride, I'll incorporate it into my day instead. So, for instance, 2 weeks ago, I was working from a co-working space in the city near where I live. And because when I work there, it takes me longer to get home, obviously, because I'm not working at home. So I've just got to commute, basically. And that eats into my evening time where I might want to go for a run or a bike ride. Normally I would lift shed into work, and so I lift shed into work, but I brought my bike with me so I could cycle home. And that was an epic bike ride. It's not far at all. It's 25 kilometers. It's not very far, but there is an absolutely enormous hill in the way, like an enormous hill in the way. So it's a really like full evening activity. It took me about an hour and 40 minutes. It actually took me 20 minutes longer than that, but only because I stopped at the top of the hill because I bumped into a friend and I was talking to him for 20 minutes. But the actual bike ride itself took me an hour and 40 minutes to get home because of this massive hill in the way. But I felt so good because I would have to be, you know, in the co-working space and then getting home anyway. Like that trip is already going to take 40 minutes in the car, half an hour in the car. So why not just turn it into a bike ride? Perfect. Or I used to cycle to the supermarket all the time. Sometimes I still do. I've moved quite a lot further away now, so it's a bit of a faff. But I used to cycle to the supermarket all of the time, and like I would load up my rucksack or my panniers or whatever with the food that I needed. I've also, I also did the shoe rack run, which I've made a video about before, and it's a bit mad, but basically I bought a shoe rack for like a £5 on Facebook Marketplace, and it was only down the road by car, but it was actually about 2 miles away, I think, 2.5 miles, I can't remember. And so I ran there and then picked up the shoe rack and then kind of walked back. It's quite hard to run with a shoe rack, as it turns out, but it was really fun. And it's just moving, it's just building exercise into your day rather than having it as like a separate thing from everything else. So incorporating it into your day in some way is a really good way of prioritizing physical movement without having to, you know, schedule it. One of the most brutal truths about prioritizing physical movement, in my case running and cycling, is that it is essential to life. I mean, it's really essential to life. And we can pretend that it's not. We can pretend that not doing any kind of physical movement is okay for a while because we can't see the chronic effects of it. Like, you know, you can smoke and you can't immediately see the chronic effects of it, and it could take you decades to see the chronic effects of it. Or you could never put on sun cream, never protect your skin against the sun, and you're not going to see the effects of it for a really, really long time. And then, bam, you're 65, and suddenly you're like, oh, well, that's why I should have been doing this thing the whole time. I get it now. And it happened to me on a minor scale from a lifespan point of view, but during my entire 20s, I was trash when it came to looking after myself. I didn't really eat junk food, but I drank a lot of alcohol, and I really did not prioritize my own physical or mental health. And everything suffered for it. I didn't do much exercise either. Like, I was active in my life, but I didn't do any specific kind of exercise really, because I didn't find the joy in it. I'd lost that part of it because I wasn't looking after myself at all. And then when I hit 28, 29 and I gave up drinking and I really started prioritizing my own physical and mental health, and I started eating really well, and I started moving all the time, and I started sleeping better, and I just put my health first, then it all kind of started making sense, because I could see the decade before how badly that had impacted on my health, because suddenly now I was focusing on it. I had a ton of energy. I never felt rubbish in the morning. I always felt great. And I suddenly had this strength and energy and zest for life. Oh, it sounds like an advert. But so often we get into this habit of neglecting our health and then thinking that our low energy levels must be stress or work or whatever. Whereas actually, like, yes, those things are a part of it, but the way we are physically treating ourselves probably accounts for quite a lot. And this isn't just like it's healthy to move your body and your body feels good for it. Your mind feels good for it too. When you go out for a run that you maybe don't want to do because you're not really feeling it, when you're actually out there, you only don't want to do a run before you've left the house, by the way. When you start running, yes, it's difficult, but you know, you kind of feel good because, hey, I left the house, this is good. When you finish that run or that ride or whatever you're doing, you feel amazing. Money can't buy that shit. You feel so good. You might have gone for a 5K run, maybe it took you 2 hours, I don't even know. But you feel fantastic because you did something genuinely great for yourself, for your body, for your mind. You feel elated, you feel physically like satisfied, you feel hungry, you feel like, yeah, I just did something, I did something real, you know, something real. So I really think that when you remember that movement is a necessity for life, like it is vital that you move, then it becomes a lot easier to kind of prioritise it. Okay, finally, before I go and actually go for a run now, I want to say that one of the best ways to motivate yourself in the short term, but this can work for long term too, is to book onto a kind of event or something. So I recently convinced one of my friends to do a triathlon, and she took me up on that, and she trained for months, and she said she felt better than she had in years. Like, just having this training to focus on, and she wasn't doing an Ironman or anything, you know, she wasn't like filling every single hour a day with training, you know, she still had a full-time job, but just having that reason, the real reason for her to go out and do these different sessions every week really, really helped her focus on her goal. And the goal, yes, was a triathlon, but actually she enjoyed the process of training for it so much that now, like, she does feel like her life has changed. So having an event, whether you want to do the park run and just get a faster times every week or something, or if you actually book onto like a small local race, running, cycling event, sportivas, they're not always races either. You can just do kind of events. You know, no matter what it is, just maybe put something in the calendar, because it can really help you when you're on the fence, when you're in that indecisive moment where you're like, I could go for a run, or I could just not. It really helps you say, okay, no, I will go for a run because I need to be race fit for that race. I need to turn up knowing that I've done at least, you know, some training for it. That can really help. It's not an essential, but for me, it really helps me really focus what my training is going to be. So I hope what you've taken away from this video is that prioritising your health is not selfish. Prioritising movement is an absolute necessity for life. And we have our priorities very bizarre now at the moment. I fall victim to this too. I mean, God, the amount of time I've wasted scrolling through social media, putting off going for a run, even though I know I am going to go for a run. I can waste like 45 minutes reading shit on the internet because my brain is like, I don't want to get a cold going out the door right now. I don't want to do that right now. So I'm like, okay then, well I guess I'm doing it in 2 hours time when I could have already been out and come back in this time. I fall victim to this too all of the time, and it's a constant battle to remind myself that it's the feeling of being out there and in nature and in my body. That is the feeling that I really need. I don't need to know what insert influencer's name is doing today, right now. No, I don't. So on that note, I'm going to get changed and go for a run. And I really hope that you are currently in a situation where you can also close down your laptop after watching this video and also go for a run. But if you can't, that's fine. Maybe you're not even a runner. Maybe you're a badmintonist? A badmintoner? A bad... Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope this was inspiring. See ya!